our question for you today is, why should parents be taking data, and how can we do it so that it makes sense to us without getting really too involved to the point where it's not going to happen?
Right. I love that you asked this question. It's a great question. It's kind of a tough one, honestly, because like you said before the break, when you hear data collection, you start to cringe. Oh. Honestly, most junior level therapists, new hires, when we first hire them and train them, they hear data collection and they cringe. Honestly, a lot of us seasoned professionals, we hear data collection, we cringe. Even though we're the data geeks and all we want to do is look at data, still, honestly, it is kind of a pain in the neck to collect data. It is more difficult than not collecting data. It is more effort than not collecting data, right? So
why do we do it?
Thank you. So the reason why we do it is because human history has proven time and time again, both in ABA and in every other major field of human endeavor, that human memory is fallible. Human memory is not good enough to make judgments about the status of things that change on an ongoing basis and that are critically important, okay? There's plenty of great analogies out there. Think about all the best athletes, right? And I always use the Olympic training analogy because it is very similar to what we do, I think, in autism treatment. All the best athletes out there, when they're training, what do they do after they do engage in some kind of performance? So they go for, marathon runner, he's practicing, he goes for a long run. What does he do when he's done with the run? He goes click on the stopwatch, right? Yeah. And he doesn't just look at it and then throw it out. He writes it down somewhere. And now they have apps, right, that store all of your data on your performance today. And the reason for that is because human memory alone isn't good enough, and just judgment alone isn't good enough. So you said, I'm training for the Olympics. I think I did pretty well today. I think I might have, gotten a little bit faster. I'm not really sure, but my gut tells me, right? Obviously, that would be ridiculous, right?
Right. They would never do that.
They would never do that, right? Or let's say you're an engineer and you're testing the safety of a bridge, let's say. You don't just kind of look at it and go, I wonder if that's good enough, right? They take specific measurements, right? Because quantifying the status of something gives you much more real, reliable information than if you just kind of use your gut, okay?
Well, and honestly, if you didn't take the data, then you wouldn't be able to look at it and say, hey, I got up at 8 o'clock in the morning these days and I did this one, but when I got up at 7 o'clock, I did better.
Right, exactly.
So you wouldn't really have a way of looking at what was working and what wasn't working and what to change and what not to change.
Exactly right. And so now let's bring it back to a more concrete example of, of parents living with folks on the spectrum, and maybe we're taking data on tantrums, right? You'd think like, oh man, I remember when a tantrum happens, right? It's pretty obvious, right? Right. Like, it's hard to forget, right? But honestly, at the end of the week, do you remember, is it easy for you to remember whether your child had 8 tantrums versus 10 tantrums this week?
No, because it all smears into one sort of hell.
Right? Yeah, it really does. It honestly does. Do you remember, for example, that your child, on Tuesday, that your child had a tantrum for 5 minutes or 7 minutes or 10 minutes? Or are you going to be able to remember whether it was 30 minutes or 20 minutes? Not really. Let's just be honest, right? No way. You could remember how you felt about it. So you could say something like really bad, or not so bad. But when you want to know whether something works, just your own judgment about it is not good enough. So if we have a behavior intervention plan in place for tantrums, right? So the professionals come out, we train you, the parents, we role play with you, we practice with you, we're sure you can do it properly, and you know how to do it, and you're excited to get it done, and you start out, and what you want to know is, over that first week, are the tantrums actually changing? Are they going down either in frequency or in duration? And if you're not recording data on that, the only thing we can do is rely on your best judgment and your best memory. And so you honestly won't be able to know. Or what you'll be able to say is something like, I think they are getting better. Or it seems like they're getting better. Right. Or they're getting a little bit better. Or they're getting a medium amount better, right? But that's not good enough for treatment evaluation. Yeah. What we want to know is how much better. We literally want to be able to say, wow, Jimmy's tantrums have decreased by 50% already this week. That means the treatment is working, right? Let's keep doing this treatment. Don't change anything.
Right.
So here's another major reason for data collection. And there's a traditional psychology term for this that I'm blanking on, but events that are particularly intense, people remember better than events that aren't, okay? So if you have a really good day, or a lot of times in the case of challenging behavior, a really bad day, then that really bad day seems more representative of reality than the other 6 days that week that were actually pretty good. Okay. So then if your supervisor comes to you and says, hey, how was Jimmy's tantrum this week? If he had one really bad day, you're way more likely to remember that one bad day, right? And so you might say something like, well, actually, it's going, it's a pretty rough week. It was going pretty bad.
Right.
And so then your supervisor might think, well, we better change something. It's not working.
Right.
But if you were actually collecting data and actually measuring carefully, what it might show is it was on a decreasing trend the whole week with one bad day, and then it continued on a decreasing trend. And if we saw that pattern, we'd say it is working, and that one bad day is a normal part of it working.
Right.
And what we need to do is not change anything.
Okay, so don't throw the baby out with the bathwater, and so it gives us that snapshot, the clear snapshot of what's actually going on.
Right, and here's another nice thing is, once you get good at data collection, it's actually less stressful because you don't have to really remember. You don't have to remember anything anymore for that particular thing you're collecting data on. You just have to make the little tally mark or press click on the stopwatch, whatever it is, right? And so it really actually, once you're good at it even though it's still a pain and it's still some effort, it actually decreases your stress overall because it gives you something you can kind of hang your hat on.